Ever felt like you're surrounded by actors? People playing roles, hiding behind masks, pretending to be someone they're not? I know I have. The world is full of illusions, and most people never look beyond the surface. But once you learn to read between the lines, you'll start seeing the truth, clear as day. I remember sitting in a meeting, watching everyone nod and smile as if they were on the same page. But I knew better. Their words said one thing, but their body language, a completely different story. The slight hesitation before answering, the way their feet pointed toward the door, the silence that lasted just a second too long. These tiny details gave them away. Once you train yourself to notice these hidden signs, you'll never see people the same way again. The ancient Stoics believed in seeing the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means looking past words and into actions, past smiles and into intentions. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." And nothing exposes a person's real thoughts more than the way they act when they think no one is watching. So, are you ready to uncover what people are really hiding? Let's dive in. If there was ever a way to get inside someone's head without them realizing it, this is it. No tricks, no fancy tactics, just 3 simple words. Tell me more. Most people are dying to be heard. The moment you give them space to talk, they start revealing things they never planned to. It's like opening a floodgate. Suddenly, a simple conversation about weekend plans turns into a confession about their real worries. A casual chat about work? Now you're hearing about office politics and hidden frustrations. I learned this technique by accident. I was in an argument with a friend about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I was ready to fire back with all the reasons why I was right. But instead, I paused, smiled, and said, "Tell me more." And just like that, something shifted. Instead of defending their stance, they started talking about childhood memories, family dinners, and why a bad experience as a kid made them hate pineapple. The conversation went deeper, beyond the surface argument. It became about who they were, not just what they thought. This works in any situation: business, friendships, even with people trying to manipulate you. I once used it in a negotiation. Instead of pushing my side, I just kept saying, "Tell me more." By the end of it, the other person had unknowingly spilled their entire strategy. I walked away with the upper hand, without ever revealing my own thoughts. But here's the thing. This isn't just a trick to get information. It's a way to truly connect. People are so used to others waiting for their turn to talk, so when someone actually listens, really listens, it catches them off guard. Their guard drops, their mask slips, and in that moment, they show you their real self. This reflects a core Stoic principle: empathy without attachment. You're not judging. You're not trying to control the conversation. You're just observing, staying calm, and allowing people to reveal who they truly are. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The same applies to how we read people. We assume, we project, we misinterpret. But when we let them speak, when we observe rather than react, the truth naturally comes out. Try it. Next time you're in a conversation, whether it's a casual chat, a heated debate, or even a moment of tension, just say, "Tell me more." Watch how easily people open up, how much they reveal, and how, without saying much at all, you suddenly understand them on a whole new level. Because real power isn't in speaking the loudest. It's in seeing the clearest one. Watch how they treat the nobodies. It tells you everything. If you really want to see someone's true colors, don't just watch how they treat you. Watch how they treat those who can do nothing for them. The waiter at a restaurant, the janitor cleaning the floor, the cashier scanning their groceries. Most people put on an act when they're around someone they want to impress. They smile, they nod, They say all the right things. But when the mask slips, when they think no one important is watching, that's when their real nature comes out. I learned this lesson the hard way. I once worked with someone who seemed like the perfect colleague. Charismatic, respectful in meetings, always had a joke to lighten the mood. But one day, we went out for lunch, and I saw something that changed everything. The moment we sat down, this person turned into someone else, barking orders at the waiter, acting like they were royalty, treating the server like they were beneath them. It was a shocking shift. It made me realize this wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't just a bad day. This was who they really were. Their kindness was never real. It was conditional. It only existed when there was something to gain. This is one of the deepest truths about human nature. The way someone treats those in a lesser position reveals everything about them. Why? Because there's no reason to pretend. If they believe a person is beneath them, they show their real self. No fear of judgment, no need for politeness, just raw, unfiltered behavior. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone switch their personality depending on who's around? They're all smiles and warmth with their boss, but dismissive and cold to a stranger. They show respect to someone with status, but talk down to someone in a service job. What does that tell you? It tells you they don't have real kindness. They have strategic kindness. They're not kind, they're calculating. And if someone only respects you because they think they need to, what happens when they no longer do? Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike the one who wronged you." That means not just avoiding people like this, but making sure we don't become them. Stoicism teaches us to judge people not by their words, but by their actions. The way they act when they think no one is looking is the clearest window into their soul. I've started using this as a silent test. I don't care how charming someone is to me. How do they treat the person who brings them their food? Do they say thank you to the bus driver? Do they acknowledge the janitor who cleans up after them? If they do, that's someone worth knowing. If they don't, that's a red flag I won't ignore. But this goes even deeper. How we treat others isn't just about them. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves. People who respect everyone, no matter their position, are often secure within themselves. They don't need to look down on others to feel important. But those who are cruel, they're usually masking their own insecurity. They use arrogance as a shield, stepping on those they think are weaker because they fear they have no real power of their own. Seneca put it best. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. The ones who feel the need to belittle others are often the ones who have never truly tested their own strength. They don't have real power, so they try to manufacture it by tearing others down. If you want to understand someone, stop listening to their words. Watch their actions, not just toward those they respect, but toward those they think don't matter. Because in those moments, their mask falls. And once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. 2. The ghosts of their past are controlling their present, whether they know it or not. People like to say, the past is behind us. But that's a lie. The past isn't gone. It's alive. It lingers in the way someone speaks, the way they love, the way they react under pressure. Their past is a script they're still following, sometimes without even realizing it. Ever met someone who seems constantly on edge? Always defensive, quick to anger, guarded in relationships? At first, it looks like a personality trait, but dig a little deeper, and you'll find the real cause. I once had a friend like this. No matter the situation, they were always ready for a fight, always expecting the worst. It wasn't until I learned about their past that it all made sense. They had been betrayed by people they trusted, lost money when they needed it most, and grew up in a home where love had to be earned. Their caution wasn't paranoia, it was survival. This is the reality most people miss. No one simply wakes up one day and decides to be jealous, distrustful, or insecure. Their past experiences carved those patterns into them, like grooves in a stone. The friend who craves constant attention? They likely grew up feeling invisible. The person who avoids relationships? They probably learned that love equals pain. And the coworker who always seeks validation? Chances are they spent their childhood trying and failing to impress someone who never gave them approval. Seneca once said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." And this is exactly what happens when people don't face their past. They get dragged through life, repeating the same mistakes, making the same choices, falling into the same toxic relationships, and wondering why nothing ever changes. They think they're making fresh decisions, but really, they're just reacting to old wounds. This isn't about making excuses for people, it's about understanding them. Understanding that when someone lashes out at you, the anger might not even be about you. It might be a defense mechanism built long before you ever met them. Understanding that when someone pulls away, it might not be about your actions, but about their fear of history repeating itself. Ever been in a relationship where everything felt perfect at first, but then suddenly they started acting distant? You didn't change, but their past memories did. Maybe they got cheated on before. Maybe they trusted too easily once and paid the price. Now they're operating from a place of fear, not logic. They're reliving an old script, expecting the same pain and acting accordingly. And here's the hard truth. Most people never break free. They live their entire lives running from old ghosts, replaying the same cycles, carrying the weight of their past into every new situation. The friend who sabotages every relationship? They're not trying to hurt themselves. They just don't trust happiness to last. The boss who never gives compliments? Maybe they grew up in a house where love was withheld, and now praise feels unnatural. Marcus Aurelius said, "Dig within." Within is the wellspring of good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig. This is where real power lies, not just in seeing these patterns in others, but in recognizing them in yourself. Because let's be honest, we all have past experiences shaping the way we think, love, and react. The real question is, are we aware of them, or are they controlling us? And here's where it gets even deeper. If you can see these patterns in others, you can help them see them too. Sometimes, all it takes is one conversation to make someone realize they're stuck in a loop they didn't even know existed. That their fears aren't about the present moment, but about wounds that never healed. Stoicism teaches self-awareness, and part of that is helping others become aware of their own blind spots. The past is never truly gone. It's shaping everything people do, every reaction, every fear, every hesitation. If you want to understand someone, don't just look at their actions. Look at the echoes of where they've been. Because until they confront those ghosts, they'll keep reliving the same story over and over again. 3. When the voice betrays the words, the hidden language of lies and hesitation. People think deception is all about words, but the real giveaway is in the voice. You can rehearse a lie, plan every detail, and deliver it with confidence. But there's one thing most people can't control: their tone. It slips, it cracks, it hesitates. And when it does, the truth leaks out. I once had a coworker who was a smooth talker, always charming, always knew exactly what to say. But one day, we were discussing a project deadline, and something felt off. His usual confident voice suddenly dipped. His words slowed down, almost like he was carefully choosing them. A slight hesitation here, a nervous laugh there. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't telling the full truth. Sure enough, he hadn't made any progress on the project. But instead of admitting it, he was trying to cover it up, and his voice had given him away before his words did. This happens all the time. Someone is speaking smoothly. Then suddenly, there's a pause that lasts just a second too long. Their tone goes higher than usual. Maybe they clear their throat, or their words come out just a little too fast, like they're trying to outrun their own discomfort. It's subtle, but once you start paying attention, you'll notice it everywhere. Why does this happen? Because the mind and body are in conflict. When a person is lying or feeling uncomfortable, their brain is working overtime to maintain control. But their body, it reacts instinctively. It's like trying to hold back a tidal wave with your bare hands. No matter how much they try to keep the lie smooth, their subconscious betrays them. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once said, "A guilty conscience gives itself away." And more often than not, it does so through the voice. Think about the last time you caught someone in a lie. What did their voice sound like? Did they suddenly get quieter? Did they start speaking too quickly? Maybe their tone turned overly cheerful, like they were trying too hard to sound normal. These aren't random shifts. These are cracks in the mask. It's not just about lies. Sudden tone changes also reveal hesitation and uncertainty. I had a friend who was always excited when making plans. But the moment I suggested something she wasn't interested in, her voice changed. Instantly. The enthusiasm drained out, replaced by something flatter, more monotone. That was my cue. She wasn't going to say no outright, but her voice had already made the decision for her. This pattern shows up everywhere. Business deals, relationships, casual conversations. Ever been in a discussion where everything was going smoothly, then suddenly the other person becomes evasive? Their energy drops. Their pitch shifts. Even if their words still sound agreeable, something feels off. That's the moment you should stop listening to what they're saying and start focusing on how they're saying it. Because that shift in tone, that's the unspoken part of the conversation, the part that actually matters. And here's where it gets deeper. People don't just lie to others. They lie to themselves. When their tone shifts unexpectedly, it's often not because they're trying to manipulate you. It's because they're struggling with their own inner conflict. Maybe they're trying to convince themselves of something they don't fully believe. Maybe they're suppressing doubts they don't want to face. Their discomfort leaks into their voice, exposing the hesitation they'd rather keep hidden. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when someone's words and thoughts don't align, their voice reflects that inner struggle. It's why Stoicism emphasizes self-awareness, because when your thoughts, words, and actions are out of sync, it shows in ways you can't always control. And here's the kicker. We do this to ourselves too. Ever said something you didn't fully believe, only to feel your own voice falter? Maybe it came out weaker than intended. Maybe you hesitated for just a moment before speaking. That was your subconscious exposing your own uncertainty. The voice is a mirror. It reflects what's really going on inside. So, the next time you're in a conversation, pay close attention. When someone's tone suddenly shifts, when their energy drops, when a pause lingers too long, when their pitch goes slightly off, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, what are they holding back? What are they uncomfortable with? It might not be a full-blown lie, but chances are they're not telling you the whole truth. The voice is the tell, and if you listen closely enough, you'll hear it every time. 4. Who they are in the dark. The truth only revealed when no one's watching. If you really want to know who someone is, don't listen to their words. Don't even watch how they act when the world is looking. Instead, observe them in the moments when they believe no one is paying attention. That's when the mask slips. That's when their real character steps forward. Most people like to believe they are the same person in public as they are in private. But the truth? Many are living double lives. One for the world, another for when they think they're unseen. I learned this the hard way. I once worked under a manager who, on the surface, was the picture of professionalism. When the higher-ups were around, she was friendly, respectful, and composed. She had the perfect tone of voice, the right words, and just enough warmth to seem like a great leader. But the moment those executives left, it was like a switch flipped. She became cold, sharp-tongued, dismissive. She spoke down to the team, snapped at people over minor mistakes, and acted like she was untouchable. The kindness had never been real. It was just a mask she wore when it was convenient. And that's the disturbing truth about human nature. Many people are only as good as they have to be. They perform kindness when it benefits them. They act with integrity when there's something to gain. But when the spotlight is off, when no one important is watching, that's when you see who they really are. It's the small moments that reveal everything. How do they treat the janitor when no one is around? How do they talk about people when those people aren't there to defend themselves? Do they still show patience when they know there's no social pressure to do so? If the answer is no, then you've just seen their real face, the one they don't show the world. This happens everywhere, at work, in friendships, in relationships. At the start of a new romance, both people are on their best behavior. They pick their words carefully, they listen intently, they make every effort to impress. But what happens 6 months in when they're comfortable? What happens when stress kicks in? What happens when they think you're not paying attention? That's when their true character surfaces. The way they speak to waitstaff, how they act when they don't get their way, their attitude when no one is there to reward or punish them, that is the reality, not the carefully curated image they show when they want something. And let's not ignore what this means for friendships. You may have a friend who's the life of the party, always entertaining, always cracking jokes. But how do they act when the audience is gone? When no one's laughing? Are they still warm and genuine? Or do they suddenly become distant, uninterested, or even cruel? A true friend's kindness doesn't depend on who's watching. It's there in the quiet, unseen moments, when there's no one to impress. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The Stoic way is to be the same person whether the room is full or empty. Your integrity, your kindness, your discipline. These things should not fluctuate depending on who is watching. A Stoic acts with virtue because it is right, not because it is expected. But here's where most people fail. They think character is what they show when the world is watching. But true character is what remains when no one is. If a person can only be good when they're being observed, it's not goodness, it's performance. If they can only be polite when they fear consequences, their respect is fake. And if they act with integrity only when it serves them, they have no integrity at all. I once had a colleague who seemed like the most supportive person in the office. In meetings, he always had something positive to say. He went out of his way to encourage others, making it seem like he genuinely cared. But one day, I noticed something. When no one important was around, his attitude changed. He became dismissive, uninterested, and unwilling to help unless there was something in it for him. That was the moment I realized. The kindness had never been real. It had been strategic. This is why the wisest people don't judge others by their words or their public persona. They watch for the moments when the mask is off. The most honest version of a person isn't the one they present when they want something. It's the one that emerges when they believe no one is watching, when they think their actions won't have consequences. Seneca said, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is." In the same way, a person is only as honest, as kind, as honorable as they are when they think no one sees them. And if someone is cruel, dismissive, or disrespectful when they think they can get away with it, don't fool yourself into thinking that their public self is the real one. If you want to understand who someone truly is, don't focus on their grand gestures, their polished speeches, or their carefully managed reputation. Instead, watch them in the moments they assume don't matter. The way they treat a stranger when there's no benefit to it. The way they speak about others when there's no one to correct them. The way they handle power when they think they'll never be held accountable. Because in those unguarded moments, the truth doesn't just slip out, it stands out. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. 5. Emotions never lie. They expose what truly matters. People say they have control over their emotions, but that's not entirely true. When something truly matters to them, their emotions take over, revealing what's hidden beneath the surface. No matter how composed they try to be, emotions are raw, unfiltered truth. They expose priorities, values, fears, and insecurities in ways words never could. I once worked with a colleague who was always calm, always collected. It seemed like nothing could rattle him. But one day, during a routine meeting, someone suggested a small change to a project he was leading. Suddenly, his entire demeanor shifted. His face tensed up, his voice sharpened, and he shot down the idea with an intensity that took everyone by surprise. It wasn't about the change itself, it was about what the project meant to him. He had poured hours into it, and in his mind, any adjustment felt like an attack on his effort and worth. That emotional outburst told me everything. He had never openly said how much the project mattered to him, but his reaction made it obvious. People don't always say what's important to them, but their emotions, they never lie. The boss who gets furious when you question his decision isn't just defending a choice. He's protecting his authority because his self-worth is tied to being right. The friend who becomes overly defensive when you point out something minor isn't upset about the comment itself. It's because it touched on a deep insecurity. The person who beams with joy when receiving praise might act like they don't need validation, but that reaction tells you otherwise. Seneca once said, "You want to know what someone values. See what makes them angry." Anger, excitement, fear. These emotions are tied to something much deeper than the moment itself. They reveal what a person is unwilling to lose, what they're afraid of, and what they crave. This applies to every aspect of life: work, friendships, relationships. Think about relationships. If someone gets unreasonably upset when plans are canceled, that's a sign that quality time is incredibly important to them. If they light up when talking about future trips or experiences, then shared moments are what they value most. But if they seem indifferent to both, that tells you something too. Even casual conversations can expose unspoken priorities. Ever mention to someone that they've been late a few times, only for them to immediately get defensive? That reaction isn't just about being late, it's about their fear of being seen as unreliable. Their emotional reaction is a reflection of their self-image, and they're fighting to protect it. Marcus Aurelius advised, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If a person's thoughts are filled with a need for control, you'll see frustration when they lose it. If their mind is obsessed with status, you'll see insecurity when they feel overlooked. If their thoughts revolve around a deep fear of failure, you'll see overreactions to even small mistakes. They may try to hide it, but their emotions will always leave clues. Understanding this gives you an incredible advantage, not to manipulate, but to connect. When you recognize what triggers someone's emotions, you learn how to navigate conversations with more care, how to avoid unnecessary conflict, and how to approach sensitive topics without making them defensive. You see what excites them, what scares them, and what truly drives them, even when they try to hide it. But here's where it gets even deeper. Your own emotions reveal your priorities too. Every time you feel a strong reaction bubbling up, ask yourself, why? Are you really upset, or is it your ego feeling attacked? Are you truly angry, or are you just afraid of looking weak? Are you offended because someone was wrong, or because they made you look wrong? Stoicism teaches that understanding your emotions is the first step to mastering them. The more you analyze your reactions, the more self-awareness you gain. And the more self-awareness you have, the less control others have over you. You stop being easily provoked. You stop reacting impulsively. You start making decisions based on wisdom, not emotion. Observing others' emotions teaches you about them. Observing your own emotions teaches you about yourself. When you pay attention to both, you gain a kind of clarity that most people never reach. Because in the end, emotions don't just reveal the truth about people. They reveal the truth about life itself.